Hello all, Alison here, and welcome to another episode of Books. It's a combination of art journal flip through and altered book on the table today. This is a hardback book that I learned how to alter in a class with France Papillon, who is an extraordinary artist and art journal creator. If you've not encountered her work, then she's well worth paying some attention to. She's also designed some stamps for Paper Arty, so we're now in that stable together. And this extraordinary ancient looking tome with rusted covers and beautiful aged papers, rusty tabs, dyed lace, all these kinds of things, is actually a cheap charity store copy of Terry Wogan's autobiography. I haven't covered up that front page because even I can't believe that this was just a completely bog standard 1980s, 1990s. I don't know when Terry Wogan published his hardback autobiography. But this book started as a completely normal, and there are pages in between where you can see it's just a modern book, ripped, distressed, inked, all of those things. An extraordinary workshop with France Papillon. It was just magic. Back in, did I say already, 2014, I think it was her first time teaching in the UK, and I seized the opportunity to go and learn from her and create this object. But then on the inside there are art journal spreads in this altered book that go from 2014 sort of onwards. I will put links in the description so that you can go and visit both some close-ups of this book. Obviously, I'm not giving away techniques and how it was made because that's France Papillon's class and that wouldn't be fair. But I will link so that you can have a look at this in detail, and there will also be a link to the label that should take you, as long as I remember to label all the blog posts, to each of the individual pages inside. So if you want to know more about what's going on any of the individual pages, I would suggest following that link in the description, because I won't talk in great detail about what we've got here. I will try to mention things in passing. So I haven't, as usual with all my art journals, I haven't filled this completely. Even I can't remember how many pages are done and how many aren't, but I left spaces in between, because also when you're working with a book like this, the paper itself is not necessarily great quality, although it's not bad in here. So very often what I've done is I've glued down several sheets together to create more thickness where I've been working. And then I thought it was just quite nice to leave a few blank pages in between so that you've got sort of that history of the book in between the decorated pages. So I haven't looked inside here for quite some time, so it's going to be a bit of an adventure for me as well to see what pages we've got, what's done, what isn't done, and hopefully this is going to inspire me to create some more pages inside here, because I think it's quite a while since I've played in this book. Okay, page number 1. So yes, this probably goes, I would say, back to around the same sort of time as the book, 2014. That's looking fairly early to me. Repeated pictures of a Leonardo da Vinci cartoon. Where the spirit does not work with the hand, there is no art. I'm guessing that's a Da Vinci quote. I think that's probably there. I don't know if you can see the layers and textures going on in that page. Sort of lacy bits, Tim Holtz lace dies, book page fragments, obviously some Harlequin stenciling going on, texture paste I think probably in there. It's beautifully tactile, this book. I think I've worked quite texturally in this book. It's probably the one that sort of inspires the Wonder altered book, which you will have seen flip throughs for if you're a devotee of books. A little rusty tab on that page. Turn, turn, turn. I will link to the Wonder altered book as well. Oh, so this is much more recent. So in this book, things don't go in order, because I would just dive in and create, and then dive in somewhere else and create, and then dive in somewhere else and create. So as we flip through, these are not going to be created in the order that these are not going to be in the book in the order that I made them. brick texture here. Anybody who's seen the brick texture Few Minutes of Fun will recognise what's going on there. That's grit paste through a stencil. And these are the Tim Holtz wildflower dies, just cut, and then I've hand painted those to create art. Find your balance, breathe, you are enough, create art. I think those might be some Prima stickers, not sure, can't remember anymore. But I quite like the painting on those flowers. That pleases me quite a lot, makes me want to do it again. So that's a very simple, gentle page, I like that. Lots of edging on the pages. It's just a beautiful object to handle, really. It's fun. This is fun for me. I hope you're enjoying it too. Oh, hello. Okay. I believe that if one always looked at the skies, one would end up with wings. I think that might be André Gide. It's on the Wings and Flight quotes set from Paper Artsy, so I will do my best to remember to check that and add details in the description. Some crackled stars in the sky there. That's crackle paste through a stencil, little bits of die cutting, little ideology labels, and of course one of the paper dolls looking up at the skies all the time. She has ended up with wings. Cathedral stamp in the background there, like that. Oh, not very far to go for the next one. You see, this is another good reason for leaving spaces in between, is that ink bleeds through. No problem with that. That's quite nice. Oh, look. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. And that we know is Edgar Allan Poe, because I've left the name on with that one. All my quote stamps always have the author's name attached, whether it's a poet or a philosopher or a playwright. 3 P's, poets and philosophers and playwrights. Doesn't sound like it's a P, but it is. Edgar Allan Poe. So you can stamp with or without those names. So if you want the attribution, it's there for you. A little bit of texture stenciling again in the middle to create a wreath. And this dream within a dream. So I've got the same paper doll there in different sizes. Just kind of echoed across the page. Just something very Edgar Allan Poe-y about that page. Slightly eerie without being full-on spooky. That's my Halloween mode very often, is slightly eerie without being full-on spooky. No, I'm sort of quite like... Oh, I've just noticed all those bubbles in the background. Hadn't seen those. I mean, I must have seen them because I must have put them there originally. What I mean is they weren't registering. More pages. Oh, see, I quite like that. That's meadow grasses and then some. This is layered and layered and layered and layered stamping down below. Lots of Tim Holtz meadow grasses at this point. This is before I created my own umbellifers and meadow grasses and stamps. I should recreate this page now using my Paper Artsy stamps, shouldn't I? Textured blossom hanging down in the sky. That's the Tim Holtz Dragonfly textured die cut twice. So there's an acetate layer with the texture on. This comes with an embossing folder that runs texture, and a version below where it's just cut from some ink splotch paper. That's left over from a couple of tags that I've made. I remember them. Wildflower dies layered over the top of the wildflower stamping, and one of the Tim Holtz found portraits photos, I think that is. One of the SKUs. Those who don't believe in magic will never find it. Those are Tim Holtz stickers. What seems ordinary is often the extraordinary. Isn't that the truth? So really full-on coverage of the pages in that one, compared to something like this where the book text is still playing a big part. It's still there subliminally in the background. Terry Wogan still going on. We were randomly assigned the books, I have to say, when we turned up for the workshop. I didn't specifically select Terry Wogan, although I did grow up listening to him before setting off to school in the mornings. This one, you can see these pieces of card. I actually stuck quite thick card reinforcing these pages because there is a lot of metalwork here and it was quite heavy. So these pieces, they're a combination of Tim Holtz and I think Prima, and also some that I just picked up in one of those generic online stores. Never fear your own voice. Take your time. Follow your path passionately. Never give up. Well, I couldn't agree more. The blue and brown, that's in my traditional colour schemes. Blue and brown is absolutely where my crafting started, but I have a feeling this is a much more recent page than that, and it may well have been at a point when I was feeling a bit creatively blocked, and so I dived in to my favourite things, to crackle, to metal, to this beautiful Weed Love stamp by Rubber Dance Stamps, to words that really, really were clearly important to me at the time. And yeah, hopefully that did its job and kicked me back off into creating. I'm guessing it did, because I didn't grind to a complete halt. I'd have to go back and look at the blog to see when that was. But I've got a very clear sort of sense of that. But you can see why that page is so heavy. It needed that extra reinforcing card on the back. And if I choose to create a page in the long run here, if I really, really wanted to fill this book, I would just incorporate that into the design. That would be no problem at all. A couple of blanks. Oh, look, lots of lovely white space on that page. Very, very simple collaging across the page. Give yourself permission. Create what you need. And sometimes I need flowers, but you'll notice it goes along with rusty mesh. Always the rusty mesh. And just the echo from collage to collage. You'll have seen me doing that game on tags even, using some of the same papers, but in different formations. A little bit of texture in the background, even some sequins. That's unusual for me. What does that say? Courageous. Very good. Give yourself permission. Create what you need. Courageous. And obviously one of the Tim Holtz photo booth snapshots there. I think that is. What else we got? Empty pages, empty pages. Oh, there's suspense. There's something in here. I can feel it. Okay. There's something that happens in my insides when I come to a blue and brown page. This is quite full-on blue and quite full-on brown, but it still does it. These twigs, not sure, might be a Sarah Naumann paper artsy stamp. There's certainly some textured stenciling here of the arched windows, and then just some die cutting of the simple Tim Holtz arch where you can layer it so you can cut the hot. So that one's cut out of there. Don't know if you can see that catching the light. There's some clear embossed texture there, so I must have inked the card and then put on clear embossing powder to just create that light catching magic in the middle. Learn to be silent. Let your quiet mind listen and absorb. That I believe to be Pythagoras. That is on one of my very early quote collections, Music and Silence. And so this page was clearly made before I started the quote stamps, so that dates that, because I had to hand stamp it with my little alphabet stamps. That wasn't actually that set, it's one of the other sets. I've got multiple alphabet stamps. But yeah, that's a quote that I've lived by for a long time, and it was one of my very first choices to go on a quote collection. Learn to be silent, let your quiet mind listen and absorb. So important. So important. Where are we? Another little rusty tab, bits of torn fabric, textile fabric, textures. More lovely white space. Oh, this was when this die from Tim Holtz had just come out, and it actually comes in a rectangle. It's a rectangular die with these amazing vines and sort of flowers all within a rectangular frame, and I just I snipped it apart so that I could create wild rambling vines, and I really, really love that. Must get that out again. It's funny with die cutting. I go through periods where I do lots and lots of die cutting and use it as a real fundamental tool in what I'm making, and then I'll go months and months without touching the die cutting machine at all, because I go down another track or I try a different thing. Again, we've got echoes of the little clock faces. Those are Tim Holtz ephemera. Dreamer. What you seek is seeking you. Take your time. Fairly consistent messaging in this book. I'm getting the impression. It seems to be the book I go to when I need, a little bit of creative reassurance, affirmation, self-stroking. Think of it as you will. These roses are from way back. They're very, very cheap little sort of dollar roses, come in a pack of 16 paper flowers. But, sometimes they do what you want. Very Edwardian looking page there. But again, I like the white space on that. I love the drift of the plants and I love the drift of the white space. That's quite an enjoyable page. Let's see what else we've got. Oh, there's one right on the next page. That's interesting. Oh, how appropriate. These are some of France Papillon's stamps for Paper Artsy. Some of her first stamps for Paper Artsy. So there's the circle. That's a very France Papillon motif. The circle with the writing around it and these beautiful little leggy vines. So yes, in a book that I learned how to make in a France Papillon workshop. How appropriate that I've used some of France Papillon's first stamps for Paper Artsy. They are joined to one of my quote stamps, let your life lightly dance on the edges of time like dew upon a leaf. That, I believe, is Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore? I'm quite sure how you pronounce that. But that's I just think that's an amazing quote. Let your life lightly dance on the edges of time like dew upon a leaf. And yeah, I think those are Paper Artsy fresco paints in the background. By the look of them, I couldn't possibly name them all, but there'll be favourites in there like lawn and sea glass and Smurf maybe, and some lavender or wisteria going on up here. So many beautiful Paper Artsy paint colours, and I'll have been mixing and matching. There might even be some PowerShell maybe somewhere in there. But that's a very gentle sort of abstract page, but still those themes of light and leaves. I wonder if that's our lot. It'll be a good sort of circle round place to stop, to come back to France Papillon, given that she's the one I learned to make the book from. Yeah, I think that's our lot in that book. So you can see that there's endless art journaling possibilities in terms of when I go to a book to create something that just makes me happy, that I don't need to show to anybody else. I can explore, I can play, I can say some things to myself that I want to say. I've just noticed the perfect Tim Holtz ideology attachment on here. The journey awakens the soul. Ain't that the truth? So I hope you've enjoyed taking a peek inside this altered book and seeing a little more of my interior art journaling journey, dotting about back and forth through time, but all in this beautiful altered book created in that France Papillon workshop back in 2014. Thank you so much for watching. Do leave a thumbs up if you've enjoyed seeing this flip through, and leave any comments or questions down below. I will try to leave helpful things in the description, but there will be a limit to what I can list. So yes, do go back and have a look at those blog posts, which I will definitely put links to in the description, and that hopefully will fill you in on anything that is missing. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all.